Hey there, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. So, hey, today I want to discuss an interesting subject. Um, my question is, we have this new variant coming out, and the stock market was selling off a little bit today. So I just wanted to kind of look at the really a bigger picture issue with, how the medical community treats infectious disease. So really the question I'm asking is the entire methodology of how medicine deals with infectious disease failing. And that's really what I want to talk about today. Methodology is like a very high level, really a school of thought on how you deal with something. It's a very, very high level in beneath your methodology, whatever your philosophy of dealing with something is, that is going to affect how you actually go and implement and do things. So basically, just really quick here's a New York Times article here, and I'm trying to just not get a run afoul of the censors, but basically they have this new variant in South Africa called B11529. In What's interesting about it is they're concerned because of the number of mutations that are on that spike protein. And so that of course is a very concern, because that's the part that helps it get into the body. So that's kind of what's going on right now. That's a concern. Now I want to just highlight, this is from JAMA, so this is the Journal of American, the AMA. So it's prestigious organization, whatever. But I'm just trying to highlight, because I know a lot of people may not really be understanding this, but this has been a very common feature of the current batch of treatments that we have. And I'm marking my words here, the jab treatments for the cerveza. That's what I'm going to call it. So here, for example, what they're talking about is breakthrough infections. And they're saying, for example, there's one study here as of October 21st, 2021, for example, 35% of 519 patients hospitalized in Massachusetts had been fully V'd, right? That's what I'm going to say. And in addition, of the fully V that do become infected, they can have as high a load of as unV'd people. So this is a really important thing to understand. And there's many places you can read about this and look it up yourself. But what's happening is people that have had the jab and those that haven't, there's a lot of studies that show that there's like really, really good protection from like really bad disease. And you can read this yourself, going to the hospital, et cetera. Even though somehow 535% are in the hospital, that's another story. See, things are changing, right? But once again, the point is that, and this is the key thing, is what they found is that people that had the shot, could be spewing just as much virus as people that didn't have the shot. And that's what they're talking about here, the viral loads, and that's the amount of virus you have in your body. So it's a very odd and interesting thing. You could basically feel pretty well, but yet at the same time, because you had the shot, and yet at the same time you're spewing virus all over the place, spreading it. And in addition, you can get it as well. And then over here, there's this talk of this study down here. And I just want to point this out for like kind of like a full disclosure. They're talking about how they believe that this, the viral load, and how potentially people that do have the V are less likely to spread it, et cetera, and that kind of thing. So I'm just pointing that out. So I think one of the things that we have to talk about really quick is like herd immunity. So here I have, our herd. We have people. They're all orange. In this particular case, they have no immunity to anything, no protection, no immunity at all. They're orange, all right? And then what happens is we have someone that is sick with some infectious disease, some virus, right? So this person in red is sick, and they're shedding the virus and they're spreading it. Now, because all these people have never seen this virus before, have no protection, it just spreads around and everyone basically is going to get it. Okay, so now what we do is we go to a place where we have herd immunity. So this is the kind of the goal of the jab. This is what the theory is. The theory is that, hey, if we get everyone this protection by giving them the jab, then when there is someone that's infected, people that are, once again, that don't have that protection. So for example, you have the vulnerable population, maybe they did get the jab, but they're not responding, et cetera, or they can't get it for whatever reason. But the idea is that if there's small enough numbers of these people without protection, but you have most of the people with protection, if you do have a case that breaks out, because all these people have immunity, they don't pass it on. See, they're not passing it on. They're being exposed to it. Their body is fighting it off. They're not passing it on. That's the key thing. And that's the key thing that's not apparently happening with the current batch of jabs that we have. You understand? This is what we have. What we have is if someone has it, all these people had the shot. But the thing is, and this person right here, they're still spreading the virus around. So they're, even though they had the jab, even though they may feel fine, so which is another interesting thing because they may feel really fine, they're still spreading it. And it's not everyone, but there's significant numbers of people that are spreading it. So now you have your poor person over here that couldn't get the jab or whatever, doesn't have the immunity, they're going to get exposed to it. So that's kind of the situation that we're in. This is definitely, for sure, this is not something intended, but this is what we have. So there's a couple of things to kind of note about this as well is like right now, the current trend is to demonize people like this, even if they like are going to die by taking it. Like if you don't believe that, what I would do is understand that there's for every medicine, and look at the next time you're watching TV and you see one of the hundreds of ads pushing medicine, they always have this warning list. If A, B, C, D do not take this, blah, 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 because there's always a risk for someone. It's a very small number of people and small risk in the big picture, but there's always risk for someone that just should not take it, right? Or that it will not be effective for. And so the problem that we have right now is that all these shiny, happy people that did and obeyed, they're spreading it around. Okay. So this is the part that I really want to get to. I just try to lay that out as, do your own research on that. You really should, because they're not really being completely, they're kind of trying to minimize that knowledge. They don't want you to really think about it because it has consequences. But the current methodology, so in the dumbest, simplest sense, this is really the current methodology in terms of how we treat these infectious disease. And once again, this is a methodology. This is a really big thing. You're talking about billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies and industries. You're talking about entire departments of the government, all built around this methodology. And the methodology is that like, hey, we have a virus. Okay, can we identify it? Let's push that towards big pharma, which is also the government end too. The government labs, big pharma, there's a lot of back and forth there. We push it to them and then they basically decide, hey, if it's worth it money-wise, if it's going to cost us $1 billion to develop something, we need to make 10 billion, whatever the numbers are. Or if we're going to spend $1 billion doing it and we don't think we're going to make that much, but we can get the government to give us money to cover it, then whatever it is, it has to be monetarily worth it to them. Then they produce a jab for it. And then they give it to the people that don't have it and they become happily immune and everything's good, right? So that's the current methodology. The thing is, we need to note that this takes a long time. This was done in record time with this the cerveza sickness one. 1 year was incredible technical achievement, really. You got to just be straight with that. That was really impressive that they were able to come up with something that is as effective as it is. But it took a year. Here's our current situation. So our current situation, you have this methodology up here that takes 1 year to 2 years. And, it might only take a year to develop, but then to deploy it still takes more time. So that's the current methodology is on this long time frame, 1 or 2 years. And what we're getting leaky people that are leaking. And we have these variants coming out because this is what's called an RNA virus. It doesn't have proofreading and it just, what it means is it can mutate. Now, there's a lot of mutations that don't mean anything. The only variants that they talk about, there's like maybe 10 different ones that you can read about right now. But these variants are coming every, 3 to 6 months. We had the Delta come out. We have this one, that one. If you look, there's actually many other variants. Some of them just die off and aren't really as persistent. Other times they are persistent. But you have stuff moving on a fast time scale, 6 month, 3 month time scale that this cannot respond to. Okay, so this cannot respond to. And then the response that this has the problem where it's really not giving you the immunity because people's eyeballs are leaking. Okay, so really that's the question that I want to ask here. Is the entire methodology of how we deal with infectious disease failing? And the answer, I think, is clearly yes. So now, the real issue is, when is the medical establishment going to wake up and realize that a change is needed? We're going to battle there are zombies, right? I don't know, in this game, Minecraft, there's zombies. So the question is, what are we going to do about this? What are they going to do about it? So the first issue is, look, if what you're doing isn't working, you have to consider doing something else. But of course, our governments and our leaders are not doing that. Now they're talking about lockdowns again, which didn't really work, right? They didn't really work. We're still dealing with it 2 years later. Nothing's really changed, right? We're still in the same situation. So it didn't work. And then the question is, we had this situation, and it's really amazing to me, like in the US, like the Fauci's of the world, that basically every time there was research on a type of medicine that wasn't a vaccine, right, or wasn't pushed by a major pharmaceutical company, anytime it was like an older medicine, like the Duizabin, what I mean, these different like old medicines that have been around for forever. And if you, for example, were going to Africa where there was malaria, they would just give you this stuff and be like, oh, no problem, no worries, very low risk of problems. But yet then they do these studies and demonize the medicine. Why they're doing it, I don't know. But that's kind of what they did. And so now the question is, look, hey, what you're doing isn't working. First of all, they're not going to admit it. They're not going to admit it because too many people have too much vested in the current system that we have, but it's not working, right? We're going to be 5 years down the road, we're going to be in the same situation we are now. We're going to have a new batch of these, okay, that are going to have some kind of effect, but it's still going to be circulating. It's still going to be circulating, and there'll be new variants, and that's just the situation that we're in. So the question is, what do we do about it? Maybe it's time that they consider something else. Now, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving medical advice in any way, but I can give general life advice. If you're doing something and it's not working, the first thing you need to do is realize that it's not working. And you have to, it's not that you realize, you sort of get that sense, your inner sense. Your spidey senses start tingling and saying to yourself, oh my gosh, something's not working. And that, of course, brings a lot of fear in people. Oh, something's not working. But if you want a better life, what you want to do is you want to try to just face that stuff. Face it as soon as you can and just accept it. Hey, it's not working. And then try something different, preferably an educated guess, as to like, okay, let's make an educated guess on which direction to go and try that. That's what needs to happen. It's very clear that's what needs to happen. But the problem that we have is our mainstream media and our mainstream medical, just the people in charge are just going to have such a struggle dealing with that. And so unfortunately, we'll be dealing with this for a long time. So I think this is showing the limits of what you can do with shots. It's showing that, look, it's not working. You cannot respond fast enough to the changes in the virus. Look, you have to understand, you got billions of people. Each person that gets infected is basically, it's being replicated billions of times within each person. Every time there's a mistake in the replication, that potentially leads to a mutation. Multiple mutations or mutations in the right spot lead to something that functionally changes its behavior. It may gain function, let's say, meaning it could be more infectious, more deadly, whatever. So as all that's happening, the question is, how do you deal with that? Are you really going to be able to respond by decreasing the time it takes to produce a new shot? 1 year was pretty much a record. I mean, can they do it lower? Yeah, they can, but they're going to do it with a risk. You're going to have to hurt a lot more people because you're going to have to take more risks. You're going to have to do less testing. So that's one option. Another option is to just admit that they're not doing what you need them to do and go in a different direction. The reality is the human body can respond much faster than the big pharma solution can. I mean, clearly we can respond very quickly, but the problem is there's a risk. Our bodies get overwhelmed, and when they get overwhelmed, people get very sick and they die. So the question then becomes very clearly, and this goes back to the start of this thing back in China, there were certain things that they were testing, just old medicines that were antiviral type medicines, and then antibodies and all these different things that they have. And they were very effective in reducing it. and reducing the number of people going to the hospital and stuff. And then so our medical establishment didn't like that for whatever reason and demonized it. So I think, so I'm going to just wrap up and sum up here really quickly. I'm trying to make my video shorter. The point I'm making is that we need to start thinking, takeaway here is that our leaders are going to struggle to accept that there's a problem here, that there's a problem with their methodology, which is more than just, it's more than science, it's their belief system. They really cannot get over anything that questions the belief system that we can produce a shot that can solve all our problems. It appears that that is not the case. It is not solving the problem. It's not going away. And it may, in fact, be getting worse. So it's up to us as the average Joe people to push back on them so that they can learn and wake up and start doing what they need to do. Doctors need to understand that, like, oh, I'm going to be treating plenty of people that have had the shot in the hospital and I need to treat them. And therefore, I need to go do the research and figure out what worked for people, what worked and what didn't work. And that means you have to do the Florida Alliance, all these different medical groups that publish all this research on, you know, what they found worked and what they found didn't work in treating thousands of patients. You know, they need to wake up and start doing that. They need to change their way of thinking. They need to change their methodology. They will not do it easily. They're too afraid. They're too afraid. It's a religion to them. They're too afraid to do that. You, if you become sick, you know, you have to do your own research and you have to help them help you. That's it for this one. Bye.